Welcome back to the show, everybody. You're going to love what we have for you today. The footage from XRP Las Vegas 2024 is in, and boy, have we got something for you to see today with Chris Giancarlo on stage. Somebody roll that beautiful intro.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show. Sorry about that. You can follow us on Twitter, YouTube, and digperspectives.com for exclusive content. Right now, $2.44 trillion market cap for crypto. The market is up 2.2%, 62,900 plus for Bitcoin, 3,000 plus for Ethereum right now, $111 billion plus market cap for Tether. XRP back at the number 7 spot at 51 cents, up 0.4 on the 24, off by 1.9 on the 7-day. Range of price between 51, almost 53 cents at 0.5294. We'll keep an eye on it. It's pretty calm right now, but we'll see where it is. But I think the technical analyst last told us being over 51 cents keeps us in a bullish area. So we'll keep an eye on that price range to make sure we stay above that. And if not, we'll find out what's going on. But gold, 27-year breakout versus 12 years. This is Egg Rag Crypto showing that gold is sending a warning for a big, massive breakout, ladies and gentlemen. And just take a look at this. It could take us to $5,000. Come on in. Yeah. You know, this is remarkable. Like, just looking at this, we've seen calls for $3,000 to $5,000. You can see here, even a call here for $3,000 to $5,000 range where things are going. I just had an incredible talk with Andy Sheckman from Miles Franklin. And if you're looking for gold, precious metals of any kind, you'll get the best prices if you just email them at info@milesfranklin.com and put dig gold in the subject box. But you can see we're on the precipice of something breaking out here. And I firmly believe that it is a combination of gold working together with distributed ledger technology and things like XRP and the XRP ledger to bring the confidence to this new digitized world and tokenization that we're moving to. And I believe the best way to anchor that confidence is in tokenized commodities like gold and other metals. So this is getting exciting, seeing the charts start to show that we could be headed towards a place that recognizes the moment we're discussing here. Then hear from Chris Giancarlo himself here. Crypto, CBDCs, and stablecoins are the future, says former CFTC chairman, and he certainly does. And he said it on stage at XRP Las Vegas. And we've got a clip for you that's going to just knock you out. You're going to love it. And I encourage you to watch the whole interview. But this here from Bank XRP, who I properly got to meet and spend some time with. And I tell you, this is one of the OGs in the space that put me on way back in the day. And I just love meeting this guy. He's such a great energy, and he's done so much for this community and continues to do so. So it was really, the pleasure was all mine, Bank. I really do say that, and I can't wait to see you next year. But he tells us all here, Citibank, JP Morgan, and SIFMA coordinated U.S. distributed ledger technology settlement known as DLT settlement trials and the regulated settlement network. Now, we need to go into this very quickly before I play this clip with Chris Giancarlo that ties all of this information in. You're talking about a very, very serious article here. 10 financial institutions, including Citibank, JP Morgan, will participate in distributed ledger technology feasibility trial. It involves using tokenized deposits, wholesale central bank money, regulated settlement networks. And if you go down here, SIFMA in this regard is Security Industry Financial Markets Association, and they will act as a program manager for the proof of concepts of these trials. And essentially, this is all going back to include BNY Mellon, Broadbridge, the DTCC, ISDA, for which Ripple is a part of, right, the International Swaps Derivatives Association, the Tacit Group, and the nonprofit MITRE Corporation involved, as well as the New York Innovation Center at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. This all ties in the regulated liability networks with the regulated settlement network and the unified ledger are similar concepts all working together here. They previously noted the BIS unified ledger may not use DLT because central banks prefer an infrastructure with central bank money to be centralized. Arguably, the RLN, regulated liability network, inspired the concept of a unified ledger, and hence the RSN, which is the regulated settlement network, and unified ledger are similar. So there you have that. This is super exciting to me because it tells you this is where we're going and we're not going backwards. Emi Yoshikawa tells us, breaking news right here, that Japanese financial giant SBI starts running an XRP ledger validator, ladies and gentlemen. Oh my goodness. And might I add one more time how incredibly amazing it was to meet Emi Yoshikawa again in person. I first met her at Apex in Vegas a couple years ago, and then I was able to meet her, and I was so in awe of meeting you, Emi, that I totally messed up. I meant to get a picture of us again this year to document us being able to meet again, and I thought it would be funny that we do a picture that was kind of similar to the first one we did, where we were pointing at some signs, but I totally forgot. I got so excited with meeting you that I forgot to get the picture. So my fault, but next time, pictures on me, right? So that's where we'll do that. But this is super exciting. We know Yoshitaka Katao, who is sharing this information as well, has been a huge advocate for Ripple and XRP in the XRP ledger. This says one step closer to mass adoption in Japan, and I absolutely love every single minute of it. Every stock bond will be tokenized, having its own CUSIP, and registered on a general ledger. We believe this technological transformation for financial assets. That's what Larry Fink from BlackRock is saying.
We believe the next step going forward will be the tokenization of financial assets.
Tell them, Larry.
And that means every stock, every bond will have its own, basically, CUSIP. It'll be on one general ledger. Every investor, you and I, will have our own number, our own identification. We could rid ourselves of all issues around illicit activities about bonds and stocks and digital by having a tokenization. But the most importantly thing, we can customize strategies through tokenization that fits every individual. We would have instantaneous settlement. Think about all the costs of settling bonds and stocks. But if you had a tokenization, everything would be immediate because it's just a line item. And so we believe this is a technological transformation for financial assets. I believe if you want to talk about voting and voting choice and all the things, if we know every moment who is the owner of that stock and it's now time to vote, every individual who has ownership is identified and they can vote their own share.
And there you have it. Sounds like Larry Fink is completely on board, and he is not confused about what this technology can do. And neither is this guy. If you haven't gone, I have released all the panels that we've had that I've got clearance for. They're all public from the XRP Ledger Conference, Las Vegas Conference. So make sure you go and watch them. I'm showing a piece of this now. It's going to make this video a little longer than I normally would, but you're going to want every single bit of it. And I encourage you to watch the first half of this as well. Let's take a listen. Fireside chat with myself and Chris Giancarlo. Again, thanks to Chris for an incredible conversation.
The future is going to be a kaleidoscope of state-run systems, of decentralized systems, and of some systems that are very centralized by big tech companies. So that's inevitable. What is not inevitable is whether that new future is going to have the same open architecture and freedom that we expect from the internet, or whether it's going to be one that's going to be highly controlled and centralized. We are in right now, in an internet of value, we're in a fight right now for what are going to be the values of those systems. And we, the people, need to speak up.
No question about it. And I do encourage everybody, I know as you do, and Perry Ann, it's been a theme for the day. It should be the theme going forward. I have to do it too. This is not me, telling anybody, but I got to take this advice too. I will be going home and calling and asking who I can meet with at my senator's office to begin this conversation. And I promise you, I'm going to follow through and do it, and I hope everybody here does it too.
Yeah, here.
So when you talk about this kaleidoscope, I can see it. There is, there's going to be multiple protocols out here. There's going to be multiple different tokens. And the stablecoin bills out here, although they're missing privacy, they really elude. It's not just about a digital dollar stablecoin. These stablecoin bills are tokenization bills.
Yep.
And it is about getting the traditional markets tokenized. Yep. So this is a massive piece of legislation that's going to be done when it gets done.
And don't get me wrong, I support the stablecoin bills.
Yes.
I would like to see the privacy protections enhanced.
Added in.
But I support them. And I support in fact, I'm on record of having supported a number of the bills. I was actually asked to put my support for the Senate bill in writing and presented to the Ag Committee, which I did last year.
Well, as both of us understand, there's a protocol world after all, right? And all of this happening, and multiple different kinds of stable coins obviously that exist, whether they're commodity stable coins, fiat-backed stable coins, derivatives, stocks, bonds, and so on. You look at that wide range of all of these things, and that just sounds like a giant new use case being created for the world here. Go back to the dollar stable coins, and you allow this private issuers like financial institutions to have this granted access to create a Bank of America stable coin, a PNC or Wells Fargo, right? So if we have these new use cases for these digital dollars, those entities will be required to have a qualified custodian and hold one-to-one or a surplus. But we're in a situation right now, Chris, where, at home, domestically, and geopolitically, there are a lot of things headed towards an intersection that doesn't look very healthy for us. Just speak to that moment, what that looks like from your digital dollar project chair.
Yeah, it's funny. History is a series of contractions and expansions. If you look at the U.S. approach to money, during the 19th century, it was a very expansive notion. We had states issuing currencies, we had railroad companies issuing currencies, you had mines issuing currencies, and you had the federal government issuing currencies. And then we went through a period of high restriction, which reached an apogee in the 1930s when the Roosevelt administration actually banned ownership of gold. Everything had to be based on a federal notion of value. We've expanded that once again. We have a much more liberal approach to that, and we're in a global world where there's many different instruments of value that are competing. The question is whether we go back to a restrictive period again or whether we go to an open period. And what's going to make the difference is the people. Yeah. At the end of the day, politics does respond. If we're asleep at the switch, if we allow the politicians to have their own way, they will look to restrict things down, because once you have less choice, politicians have more control over it, right?
Unfortunately, with the way things are today, and if we look at the printing, the inflation here at home, we look at the geopolitical conflicts that are happening, the advancement of the Chinese digital yuan, we don't want to see that get white labeled in other countries and so on. Can they avoid, you know what I mean? Like standing on the sideline and avoid being a part of this innovation? You can't.
No, and honestly, they have the right to exercise their economic clout. We don't agree with their value set, but they have a right to economic. We should just be countering that with a better set of values. The sad part is we're not doing that, and so they're dominating the conversation.
So at this point, if we look at if we just look at the things that are happening, just the inflation, the money printing, we all in this room know that it's unsustainable. And we don't get an email when it hits that wall. There's a line in the sand when it comes to money. And this is so funny, because as involved as the construct of the financial system is, there's an imaginary line in the sand called confidence. And once it's lost,
absolutely,
that piece of paper isn't worth anything.
That's right.
And what I see coming, and I want you to speak to this from just from the Digital Dollar Project. What I'm seeing is this unavoidable moment in the front of us, and there has to be someone at some point has to come forward and allow these new use cases to be happening, like stable coins, private issuers, because I see like this hyperinflation moment. Now, I'm not trying to be an alarmist. I don't know whether it slides greatly or what's that scale look like. I can't tell you. But everybody knows that it's a high probability of happening. We just don't know how bad it gets, right? But if you introduce this ability for these new issuers to have a stable coin, then they are the ones that soak up like a sponge or a bulkhead that catch these hyperinflated dollars that are coming back home. Could you speak to that?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you put your finger on it. I think the biggest threat to the American way of life is government money printing.
Yeah.
Everyone here, if you reach in your pocket and you have dollars there, 1 out of every 4 of those dollars was printed in the last 3 years. That means that if you had $100 3 years ago, it's worth 75 today. It's simply unsustainable. It's destroying the very fabric. And if you add that with the 2 other issues that I find very destructive, is the miseducation, deliberate miseducation of our population by teaching them what to think, not how to think, and the real failure of our schooling system.
Yes. You. Hello. Hello.
And then the real overuse of economic sanctions, the sort of profligate misuse of economic sanctions as U.S. foreign policy, has really diminished, I think, the dollar. So to understand what's happened to the dollar, you first have to understand why it became the world's reserve currency. It became the world's reserve currency because at the end of World War II, the United States was the dominant economic power with a fully intact industrial base, with self-sustaining energy production, and a highly educated workforce that was innovative, highly productive, and hardworking. All of those things are being diminished right now. I mentioned the school system because it's diminishing the innovative nature of our own homegrown talent. Because of our restrictions on energy production, we have the ability to be self-sustaining, but we're not allowing ourselves to be self-sustaining. And the profligate misuse of the dollar in global sanctions has made many countries in the world wary of the dollar and wanting to find alternatives to the dollar. And then, of course, the profligate money printing. These are not sustainable. These things alone can diminish the dollar significantly to the point where the world is searching for other reserve items. The other point is that the dollar, if the dollar becomes an analog instrument in a digital world, it will struggle to find its place. If the dollar is not a programmable instrument, if the dollar is not a method for people to convert from in a stable coin is a centralized stable coin is a corporate obligation, right? It may be on a digital network, but at the end of the day, it's a corporate obligation. We've seen runs on stablecoins. We saw a run on USDC. We've seen runs on Tether. When there's a run on bank money, what do? People go to the bank and the ATM and they take physical possession. But they're really doing something bigger than that. They're actually converting a bank liability into a sovereign liability. That's the safety you're getting. You're actually converting what your money at Citibank is not stacks of $100 bills in Citibank's basement. It's an IOU from Citibank. And if you're worried about Citibank's solvency, you want to get out of the Citibank IOU and get into a government IOU. Well, with stable coins, you're still transferring value. You're getting value in their network and whatever reserves they say they're holding, but ultimately it's still a commercial liability. And if there's a run on that platform, what you want to do the same thing you did with account-based money. You want to go from a corporate liability into a sovereign liability. And if there's a digital dollar, you'll be able to do that. But if there's not, you're going to go to a digital euro. And so if there's a run on stablecoins licensed under this new legislation, we might see de-dollarization. And that's another threat to the dollar, another reason why we need to modernize the dollar. You know, it's interesting. The reason we have what we call a dollar is because when the United States, it's not called a dollar in the Constitution. When the United States wanted to create money, it looked around and said, what's the most sophisticated, technologically advanced money in the world? And that money was the dollar, but it wasn't the American dollar because it didn't exist yet. It was the Spanish dollar. And the reason why the Spanish dollar was the most technologically sophisticated is because it was minted with New World silver, which was more consistently pure than Old World silver, meaning it used less alloy and it was more fungible one coin to the next. But more importantly, it was minted in such a way that can be broken into 8 equal pieces, known as pieces of 8, making it fractionable and easier to use in trade. And you know, we liked that so much that we called ours the dollar. We used the same symbol, which is the S with the 2 lines through it, which appeared on the Spanish dollar. And we made the dollar dividable into 8 equal pieces. $half dollars, quarter dollars, and what used to be called bits, which were 2 halves to a quarter, divided into 8. So we modeled the dollar on what was the most technologically sophisticated instrument of its time, and yet now we're going into a whole new digital network technology architecture of money, and we're sitting back saying, nah, no problem, the dollar's good, we don't need to change anything. Well, that's not going to work out too well. So the dollar is under threat because of profligate spending, because the dumbing down of our own domestic workforce, because of our no longer insisting that we be energy sufficient, and because we're not technologically advancing the dollar into a new digital age.
It is a remarkable moment we're in. And you talked about de-dollarization. So let's talk about BRICS and the BRICS coalition. And outside of BRICS, there is a Project Sandman that has over 100 nations around the world that want to de-dollarize too. And the plan is to simultaneously de-dollarize. That shows the sickness that they're tired of the dollar's reign, right? And we look at the sanctions recently in the Russia conflict, when the U.S. SWIFT sanctions happening there. The rest of the world, I mean, who would have thought that Janet Yellen could be the greatest advertiser to join BRICS? Who'd have thought? Because they're not participating in this, and they think that the more they keep trying to clamp everybody down, it's really just telling everybody, but there is another choice. And that new choice is a payment system that is built by the BRICS coalition, Chris. And look, to your point about the dollar and how it became what it is, you know, the last 5 currencies that served as the world reserve currency, 2 of them, I think it was, if my memory serves me correct, Netherlands and Portugal, don't hold me to it, had a lifespan of 80 years. US dollar is at 80 years right now. How much longer do we have? Can we, and I know the government, you know, nothing, then all of a sudden something, right? I understand that. But we are really facing something here, and how much longer can we sustain this moment we're in? It can't be sustained.
Throughout most of human history, almost all currencies have been grounded in some commodity. Whether the commodity was sheep or cattle, or clay tablets, or gold or silver, almost throughout all of human history, all currencies have had some grounding in some commodity, and by commodity, at least historically, has meant something came out of the ground. In fact, when the dollar went off the gold standard in the 1970s, many argue it actually went onto an oil standard, and that the dollar still remains grounded in some commodity. When we looked at Bitcoin futures in 2017, I, as the head of the US Commodity Futures Trading Commission, a commission that was created because the US government realized they could not put the new commodities of indexes on interest rates under the SEC, because it was so essential for the dollar off the gold standard to have those interest rates priced in dollars. What do I mean by that? I should break that down a little bit. The reason why the dollar is, one of the reasons why the dollar is world reserve currency is because you can hedge its movements against other currencies. You can hedge the movement of interest rates in deep and liquid markets based in Chicago with interest rate futures and currency futures. And so the US government created the CFTC, a separate agency, to safeguard that, because effectively it safeguards the dollar's status as a reserve currency. When we were looking at Bitcoin futures, I saw it as the world's first digital commodity. Well, most of the world's commodities are priced in dollars. Oil, gold, silver, soybeans, wheat, the things that the rest of the world needs are priced in dollars, which means they need to hold dollars to buy those things they need. And I thought to myself, we're now going to have digital commodities. We better make sure they're priced in dollars as well. And when we think about the fact that the world has always grounded currencies in a commodity, is it such a leap to say that maybe in the 21st century, they might ground them in digital commodities? Oh, El Salvador is already doing that. And if the dollar, because of profligate money printing, people see it as unstabilized and once again need to be stabilized with a commodity, could it be a digital commodity? It very well could. So we've done this grand experiment for about 60 years now of 50 years now of depegging the dollar from commodities. Well, we may need to repeg it to a commodity in the future to regain its strength.
Hello. Hello. Well, Chris, that brings me to this. We talk about this quite a bit, me and my friends here. You know, and when I think about what you referenced with the gold standard and then changing over to the petrodollar agreement, Saudi Arabia has started doing deals in Chinese yuan and showing that is not exclusive in honoring that exclusivity agreement for military protection for the United States, Chris. And when I think of that, I say to myself, to your point, I think you have to go to some kind of a digital tokenized commodity to back the dollar again. But again, you have to go another step further and you have to underpin it with some kind of value protocol, if you might know one that we could use that would help track it all. You guys might know one? Because I feel like what the mistake could have been, dare I say it, is moving to a petrodollar agreement, even though at the time we had the power and strength to offer that military protection. In this day and age, now those countries have the advantage to dump that dollar in those bonds and harm all of us. But if we use what you're talking about and use a digital commodity to back the dollar and put it on a value protocol that just happens to have a decentralized ledger, right? Then we can underpin the dollar for the next 150 years. What say you at the digital dollar project?
So I say yes, and let's add one other thing to that. Let's also win this war with our values.
Yes.
If China wants to make their digital yuan based upon surveillance, censorship, and control, go for it, guys. If Europe wants to make theirs on government censorship, but not commercial sensitive, because they're highly sensitive to commercial exploitation of data, but they're fine with letting government have the data, fine. The way we win this battle is we make sure that dollar-based digital currencies, whether they're run by the private sector or the government, must protect privacy, must protect economic freedom,
Amen.
Must protect economic choice. Let's win on the values and on the value.
Yeah, win on the values and the value. I love it. Absolutely right. Look, first of all, Chris, I appreciate you being here. You know I love speaking with you. But we're going to have a special opportunity tonight. And tell it, where are we going tonight?
So we're going to the House of Blues, man.
Yeah, man. I love it.
I've got my Gibson SG.
Come
guitar.
on in.
You got your drums.
Yes.
What are we going to play?
What are we going to play? What would they like to hear, you know?
Pump it up.
Pump it up. We are the champions. Absolutely right.
Well, I'll tell you what, I like all of those choices. So if you folks come out and join us tonight, we'll put them on.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We're going to put on a heck of a show, and you know Brad Garlinghouse is going to be there. Give it up for him. Shout out to Brad Garlinghouse for showing up today and showing everybody love in this room. And by the way, shout out to Chris Giancarlo for being here today. Give it up. Give it up.
Thanks very much.
Chris, thank you so much, man. Let's do it. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I tell you, what an honor and pleasure it was to sit with Chris on that panel and just have that discussion. I tell you, I don't think I need to say anything else. I'm looking forward to your comments. Not financial advice to me or anyone else. This is getting very good, ladies and gentlemen. I'll catch you on the next one.